It's another wonderful Monday afternoon. We're very, very delighted as always to have you join us here on ITV for Law and You. We're broadcasting live from Benin City, Nigeria. I'm Wuyi Agumofwele. This week we're looking at something not only topical, but which has become the trend, particularly in the last couple of years. This is something that has a wide range of implications for human beings the world over, including in Nigeria. I mean, you heard about Gully erosion, you heard about how much of devastating impact environmental issues have had on the activities of man, including in our own immediate environment. And now we get to hear about environmental laws. How effective are those laws? How much of those laws do we even have in Nigeria? To what extent are Nigerians overall informed about these laws? Now, what makes this week's edition of the program quite beautiful, apparently, is the fact that my guest today is someone who has seen both sides of the coin. By that I mean he's a lawyer on the one hand, a successful one at that, and on the other hand, he's somebody who is also an environmental activist. Chima Williams, it's a good thing to have you on the program today.
Thank you very much.
We're going to begin the conversation quickly like this. First off, it's a bit difficult for me to place your passion, whether it's in law or it's essentially in issues of the environment. But one beautiful thing you've done, quite frankly, is the fact that you've been able to strike a balance between both of them. Help me understand how that works, really.
All right. Thank you very much. First and foremost, by training, I'm a lawyer, and I never studied environmental law as a course, either in secondary school or in the university. But by passion and by conviction, I pride myself as an environmental lawyer and activist, okay? Because in the environmental terrain, I play along both at local, at national and international level in terms of both policy, in terms of both legislation, of legislative works, in terms of, my professional calling, litigation, doing it both at various levels, at national, at international, cross-country levels. So I think that I am an environmentalist and environmental lawyer by choice.
By choice.
Yes.
And that's paying off in terms of the effort you're making, isn't it?
Well, it is paying off because in this life, people think that everything is quantifiable in terms of naira and kobo. But for some of us, the most valuable thing in life is what makes you happy. And doing the environmental work as a passionate thing for me is what makes my life go round, my world go round, because it makes me happy doing it.
Incidentally, you live and work in the south of this country.
Yeah.
Yes. You can talk about the south, or more particularly the Niger Delta, and then the issues revolving around environmental degradation. Do not cross your mind. Just a while ago, you mentioned two critical aspects of dealing with the threats to our environment, our dear environment. You talked about policy, and then you mentioned legislation. Let's favor legislation. Let's pay more attention to that. How well are we doing regarding legislating for the environment? I mean, laws that will help curtail all of the excesses as regarding the environment.
Well, when it comes to the environment sector, without fear of being contradicted, we say it that Nigeria is lagging behind in terms of proactive environmental legislations, that will help curatively, secure our environment, not, reactively, work on the environment, because of course we have pieces of legislations here and there, and in different laws, environment being mentioned in one form or the other in terms of how to protect the environment. But Nigeria as at today does not have a composite environmental protection law. You cannot pick one, booklet and say this is the environmental protection law for Nigeria.
Why is that? Is it as if we don't care enough about the environment, or we don't see it as priority number one, for instance?
Well, I think it might go into issue of priority, prioritizing. What do we think are the things that we need to focus and pursue? Don't forget that, globally the conflict is always between environmental protection and development. Mm-hmm. And Nigeria as a developing nation, perhaps the people that are at policy level, making table, may think that we need to develop more than we need to protect the environment. Mm-hmm. But this is where we get it all totally wrong, okay? Because globally the trend, of course, is that any development that does not protect the citizens is no development. And I add to that to say that what is development after all? Development is to secure the greater happiness for the greater majority of citizens. That is whatever developmental, facility, infrastructure, whatever you want to put in place is supposedly to be made for the benefit and enjoyment of the citizens. And if such development input brings greater harm to greater majority of the citizens, as we see in the extractive sector in the Niger Delta, then that cannot be said to be positive development. Okay? And it is being kicked against globally because every development now strive to strike a balance between citizens' rights, environment protection, citizens' livelihood, defense, and of course the development itself. So if you destroy any of this trade that involves the citizens will kick you and your development out, because actually it means that it was never made for them.
Sometime last year, I hosted you on the radio show, and we also had a discussion that revolved around the environment. I remember then one of the elements of our conversation on that show on that day was the issue of environmental impact assessments. We talked about that a great deal. Incidentally, when you look at the way the National Assembly is structured, you have a crop of brilliant lawyers there who are also legislators, both at state and federal levels. Then you move back over here, the larger society, we have brilliant lawyers like yourself who have taken personal interests in issues that concern the environment. What are we supposed to be doing in terms of legislating the right way for a better environment?
Well, thank you very much for coming back to our last year discussion on the environmental impact assessment processes in Nigeria. Now, this is something that is currently happening. We have been on the campaign for a review of the Environmental Impact Assessment Act, which came as a military decree promulgated under self-styled President Ibrahim Babangida, then as the head of state of Nigeria, responding to the global trends and the agitation of Nigerians, for being up to speed with the global environmental practice in terms of development. Now, this is where the environmental impact assessment, process, how it came about, because it's actually to determine what is likely going to be the consequences of this project that is coming to this place, and mitigative measures that will be put in place, to cure those impacts, or at least to reduce them, or make the people, to see why they should live with it. I was at the National Assembly. Okay, there was a public hearing on the amendment to the Environmental Impact Assessment Act, sponsored by two honorable gentlemen of the House of Representatives. And of course, I led a team of civil society groups under the platform of Publish What You Pay Nigeria and Green Alliance Nigeria, which together jointly will have close to 200, NGOs across the federation, to make our submission. Okay, and we agreed with the proposals made by the national legislators, and then added the areas that we thought, could bring our environmental impact assessment process up to currency, and if not, at least set the pace. Because today, the Nigerian environmental impact assessment process dwells mostly on the physical environment. Okay, it does not look at largely the health impacts, because it looks at the physical environment and the social components. Okay, it fails to look at the cultural aspect, the health aspect, the rights aspect, of development. So now what we did was to bring out such components that will guarantee that our environmental impact assessment process, takes into account how will this project affect the health lifestyle of the people of the area of the project. How will it affect, their cultural living? How will it affect their rights as citizens? Their fundamental rights, right to healthy, living, right to life, right to dignity of the human person, right to own property, right to, all those other rights that are contained in the Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution, and those other rights that are provided for under Chapter 2, even though they are non-enforceable. But if we have progressive legislations, they can create opportunity for such rights to be protected, or at least for project proponents to make commitments to respect those rights.
All right, we're just going to take a break quickly at this point. It's getting more interesting, but after this break, I'm going to push Barrister Chima Williams a little further on some of the very topical issues within the context of the law and the environment. We'll be back shortly. Don't go away. It's good to have you stay with us here on Law and You on Independent Television. Obviously, just before we took a break, part of the analysis you made is obviously pointing to the fact that there has been this transition from what we've had right from the military era up till this point, even though we've not done an update to all of the legal instruments that should guide us with regards to how we ought to approach issues of, as it were, fixing the environment. But let's look at something else that's very important. In the last couple of years, some of the oil majors, big oil companies, have been taken to court by interest groups, particularly within the Niger Delta region. Some of these cases were won by indigents of those places where so much of devastation had taken place. Some individuals, including activists like yourself, lawyers like yourself, have alleged that some of these IOCs, international oil companies, are complicit in the scheme, or if you will, the agenda to ensure that the National Assembly doesn't make moves in terms of trying to put in place appropriate time-tested legislation that will help deal with issues of the environment. Is there any out of truth in that?
Well, I think when you talk of those that have leveled these type of accusations, we will be on the lead of those that have made this.
And you say that with a sense of pride, don't you?
Now I say it with sense of responsibility, not pride. Okay, because it's not a proud thing that you are leveling an accusation, on entities that should know better than what they are doing.
But we have facts to that.
Okay. Yes, we do. is not something that was done in secret. Okay, because if you remember, in this country, when the pressure was on to legislate against gas flaring, okay, that was I think in 2008, down, that pressure emanated from the litigation that we did, okay, where we asked the court to make a declaration as to whether it is legal or not to continue to flare gas in Nigeria. And the court, in the case of John Abomre against Shell, did make a pronouncement. The Federal High Court, sitting in Benin City here, did make a pronouncement that gas flaring is illegal for violating citizens' right to life, the constitutional right to life and dignity of human person, and defined right to life as not just, right not to have your head cut off, but anything that impedes the full enjoyment of the faculties of life as being an affront to the right to life, okay, and declared that gas flaring should stop forthwith in Irrican community in Delta State. Okay, so with that decision, there was a global outcry against continued flaring of gas in Nigeria, and we followed this up with presentations before the National Assembly, and of course it tallied because the government on their own wanted to actually end gas flaring too, because one, it was causing the country to lose enormous revenue, which we are still losing up to today. Governments have continually put out figures in billions of naira and at times dollars that Nigeria loses on monthly, on weekly, on quarterly, on annual basis to incidents of gas flaring. Okay, and here we are in Nigeria, we lack power. But the gas that is flared have been estimated by World Bank, as conservative as they are, in 2007 or thereabout, to say that the energy lost to gas flaring in Nigeria is enough, if gathered, to supply energy for the whole of sub-Saharan Africa, minus South Africa. Okay, so you can now begin to imagine the quantum of loss that Nigeria is involving us.
That sounds pretty much like a lose-lose situation.
Yes. Now, this is where, the government, I think it was under President Olusegun Obasanjo, who said they were going to, work towards ending gas flaring, and that dovetailed, I think, to Yar'Adua's administration. Now, it was at that point that the National Assembly was ready and willing to pass the gas flaring prohibition and punishment bill. Okay? So, what happened in that? The Senate of the Federal Republic passed its own version, and of course, for such a bill, it has to be concurred, by the lower house
of Representatives.
Okay, and after the Senate had passed their own bill, it was left for the House of Representatives to pass their own bill, and the House of Representatives then was under the leadership of Dimeji Bankole, a young man like me and you. Okay, and it was not an allegation, because it was on the national dailies, that the multinationals fetted them out for a retreat in Ghana, the leadership of House of Representatives. Okay, and when they came back, they killed that bill. So with that, you can no longer say it was an allegation, unfounded or spurious allegation because there were media reports on it.
Let's move away a little from issues of oil and spillage. When you look at the environment around Nigeria today, at least beginning from the south where we are, you see so much of damage already done. I mean, not too long ago, for instance, we were still talking about the Gwenede gully erosion sites, even though that has been fixed essentially. And then you still have a handful of them around here. What exactly, how much of work are we looking at in terms of still talking precisely about legislation to ensure that these issues are dealt with in a manner that's institutionalized, not built around individuals? Because it will appear for the better part, this conversation is wired around individuals as against institutions and processes.
Yeah, what I've always said is that no matter how good intentioned a leader is, the worst institutional approach is still better than the best wishes of an individual good leader. Why do I say so? The good leader will play at the stage and leave at a point. And would betide that society if the next person that comes after him has an opposite view to his. That society will be taken back, to a worse state. But once there is an institution, an institutional mechanism of way of doing things, institutionalized way of doing things, where you have to refer to precedents that you do not have to subvert, or else it will be at your own personal detriment. You find out that the building block starts. And that is why the environmental challenges that we have in Nigeria can be traced. First, to lack of institutional mechanisms to addressing those problems, which arises from absence of clear-cut out laws and legislations. Of course, you may have some policies, but most of the time, some policy issues, are at discretion. Okay, they are non-enforceable. Okay, and once you deal with that, the next will be the attitudes of the citizens themselves. Okay, because institutions will not be created or built, by our leaders on their own without pressure from the citizens that have put them in charge of our collective, patrimony. Okay, so the oversight that citizens need to play on their leaders, suggesting and pushing for institutional ways of doing things, cannot be overemphasized. This is where the collective responsibility of everybody, comes to bear. Okay, it's not only for the government officials, it's not only for the activists, it's not only for the trade unionists, it's not only for the journalists, it's for everybody, because once you are part of the process of that institutional building, you will respect the outcome of, that institution. Okay, so this is where all of us need to be players, okay, in the positive drive towards protecting our environment, because our environment is our life.
Exactly, that's a brilliant way to sum it up on the program today. I've been talking with a brilliant lawyer who doubles as environmental activist, Prince Chima Williams. It's a great thing to have you on the program this week. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Louis. It's my pleasure, always.
That's our program, Law and You for this week. I'll be back here next week, Monday. I'm Muyi Agumofegbe. Have a great day ahead of you.